Indians know more. 4 million people have been left off a list of citizens in the northern state of Assam. Narendra Modi's government argues they could not produce valid documents. So, have they become stateless? And will this create further division? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mohammed Jamjoom. 4 million people in northern India have effectively lost their citizenship after their names were left out of a national database of registered citizens. The list now includes only those who were able to prove they were in Assam state before 1971. For the people who've been left off this list, there's fear they might become stateless or even face deportation. But Indian leaders have assured them there won't be any immediate deportations and people can appeal to have their names registered. This all goes back to Bangladesh's 1971 War of Independence. That's when hundreds of thousands of people fled to India to escape the fighting. Many of them settled in the northeastern part of the country, mainly in Assam. We'll bring in our guests in a moment, but first, this report from Paul Chadurjian.
45-year-old Manowara Begum is battling cancer and the National Registry of Citizens. She has appeared at an NRC foreigners tribunal 6 times to prove she's an Indian citizen. 7 million of the 32 million people who live in Assam state had until Sunday to do the same.
I'm extremely upset. My health is getting worse, and if I don't get justice, my children won't be treated as citizens of India. If my name doesn't appear in the NRC list, then their names will not appear either.
Critics of the Citizens Registry say a movement by the Assamese to protect their culture has turned into xenophobia. Prime Minister Narendra Modi promised his Hindu Nationalist Party would take action against undocumented Muslims who fled to India during the Bangladeshi Liberation War against Pakistan in 1971.
The Foreigners Tribunal has identified many such people whose name will not be appearing in NRC. This exercise has left so many genuine Indian citizens in trouble.
After being questioned by the NRC tribunal, nearly 1,000 people were deemed to be foreigners and sent to detention camps. Supporters of the registry say their campaign doesn't discriminate between Bengalis, Muslims, or Hindus.
It is very simple. Those who have entered up to 71 Hindus and Muslims as per Assam Accord, their name will be in the updated NRC. But beyond 71 Hindus and Muslims, their names definitely won't be there in an updated NRC.
India's Interior Minister has ordered security to be tightened before the release of the updated registry on Monday. Rajnath Singh says there's no reason for anyone to panic, and he has ruled out further detentions. The government of the tea-growing and oil-rich Assam state denies accusations it's targeting poor and uneducated Muslims.
There are more than 57% Muslims in Assam. They are mostly living below the poverty line. These people are illiterate. No education system exists in their villages.
Despite the government's reassurances, many who think they won't be listed on the NRC fear detention and expulsion, but they may have nowhere to go. The federal government says undocumented immigrants can apply for Indian citizenship, but hasn't released details. Paul Chadurjian, Al Jazeera.
All right, let's bring in our panel. In Mumbai, Rana Ayub, writer and author of the Gujarat Files. In New Delhi, Prem Shankar Jha, former editor of the Hindustan Times. And in Guwahati, in Assam, Aman Wadud, a high court advocate and a lawyer who works free of charge on cases of undocumented immigrants in Assam. Welcome to you all. Aman, I want to start with you. Has this latest move now effectively made millions of people stateless?
No, this has not made anyone stateless. You would have to understand that this is not the final NRC. This is only a draft NRC, not the final NRC. This is a part of a continuous process towards the final NRC. So today, no one has become stateless, no one is going to detention center, and no one has become a foreigner. All these people who have been dropped will have to apply to know the reason why they have been dropped, and then they will have to participate in the claims and objection process. but no one has become stateless today.
Prem, you heard what Aman just said. Do you agree or disagree with that assessment?
Yes, he is correct because this is only a draft. But the question that bothers me is, why should the first draft have had only 19 million names when 32.9 million had applied for being included in the NRC? I think that the 14 million, how are they going to fill it? The second point that bothers me is, look, why is this process being done in this way? You've got the census data, you've got all the names from there, that's people above 18. And the only question that you need to ask yourself is, are there people who are outside that? And ask the questions of those people. That would make it work. This doesn't work. And then the third thing is going back to 1971. This is wrong in principle, because you cannot blame the parents. You can't blame a child for the sins of the parents. If a child has been born in India, then however he got there, he is Indian. This is the law all over the world, wherever there is citizenship by birth. This must be taken into account. And you cannot go to the courts all the time. For God's sake, the courts have got 32 million cases of arrears behind them. And they take, in any case, 3 to 5 years for a single case. And anybody who's done this already knows that he gets beggared in the process. And the poor can't afford it. So effectively, all the power lies in the hands of the bureaucrats and the police. And the bureaucrats and the police in India have invariably, unfortunately, been extremely extortionate. So this is really going to become a way of money being made in colossal amounts from the poorest people in the country. And from time to time, whenever they feel like it, you would go and get some more money.
Rana, I saw you nodding along to what Prem was saying, so I want to ask what your response is to what he had to say. But before that, obviously this is a very complicated, decades-long issue. Could you help explain to our viewers what exactly the role of the NRC is, what this is all about?
Well, the NRC, what it has done today, it seems to be a very arbitrary process where parents have their name and children do not have their name. We have to understand that this is a state where in 1983, one of the biggest massacres took place in India, the Nelly massacre, on the issue of who is a migrant and who is not a migrant. The NRC today basically is also following up on what the government had promised in its election mandate, that it will throw all the Bangladeshi immigrants who stayed in Assam, because there's a big issue in Assam, which is us, the insiders and the outsiders, the legitimate citizens of India and the Bangladeshi immigrants. When Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister of India, campaigned in Assam in 2016, he said that we will throw all Bangladeshi immigrants out of the country. Now, that is also one of the reasons why NRC has been has been given the mandate of deciding who the citizen is. But this has to be seen in the larger context of who is a migrant, the global context where we are talking about the migrant issue. The process has been so arbitrary that, as today we saw in the list, I know this, as Aman said, this is not the final list, this is only a draft. But if the draft is so arbitrary, there are people who will be given a chance to appeal. But what if tomorrow the appeal is rejected? Will they be deported? Will they be, will they be detained? The Bangladeshi government does not consider them citizens of their country. So where will these 4 lakh people go? Where will they be sent? This is a very arbitrary procedure, and a majority of this population are Bengali-speaking Muslims and some Bengali Hindus. Rana,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to also add that NRC obviously is the National Register of Citizens in India, but also to add to the point that you made about this rhetoric that had been heard from the Prime Minister in 2016. Also, even in 2014, we heard Narendra Modi say that illegal immigrants must go back, that they are robbing the youths of India of their livelihood. Isn't that correct?
Right. Yes, he has said that. In fact, which is why today's judgment is very important, because this judgment comes closer on the heels of the 2019 general elections, where Modi will have to tell the people of this country that he has walked the talk. So today's decision is not just a draft. It's also what we in India think about these migrants, and will also decide the future of these migrants and where will they go. It's also a political statement that this government is making with this.
Aman, you said a few minutes ago that those that aren't on this list, that there will be a process by which they can appeal, right? But what I'd like to know is, what is that appeals process going to look like? Because we've been told that appeals can be made between August 30th and September 28th. Is the government going to adhere to that timeline? Will the government be giving help to those who want to appeal the decision?
Well, see, the major challenge now is how will these 4 million people will take part in this claims and objection process? Because like I said, they will first have to apply from 7th of August to know exactly the reasons why they have been dropped. Secondly, from 30th August to 28th of September, they will have to apply for the claims and objection process. They will have to participate in the process. Now, we have to understand that that majority of the people are poor and illiterate. And how will they take part in the process is a major challenge, because I have been working, creating awareness among people since 2015 when this process started. So the one of the major hurdle was for these poor and illiterate people, that how will they fill up the forms, and because they don't know about the due process. So this is obviously a major challenge, and the time period, I believe, should be extended. It is as per the rule. The rule have to be amended, or the Honorable Supreme Court have to extend this time, because for 4 million people, 1 month time will be too less time. Now, because this is going, this is the due process. So the due process should be made hassle-free. It should be convenient for the people, and maybe the civil society should also take part in the process to help these poor and illiterate people. And the NRC should make the process more convenient.
Prem, I saw you reacting to what Aman was saying there. Did you have a point that you wanted to make?
Yes, I do, actually. First of all, this law, whether you like it or not, is retroactive. And any law that is retroactive is bad in law. Everything else, but what do you do? Do you deport them if they don't get their thing? Do they put them in prison? Do you force them across the border to Bangladesh? All these are secondary. They arise only if the law itself is bad. And then the appeal process has been given to individuals. Actually, someone should be appealing to the Supreme Court now that you please lay down the directive that retroactive, provisions are completely wrong, and that they must not be there, and they will not be respected by the court right from now. We need a directive from the Supreme Court just now, and that's what civil rights organizations should go for. I want to add one more thing. I fully sympathize with the problem of Assam. It has a very powerful culture and a long history, and it has been completely sort of muddied in the past 50 years because of the tragedy of partition. But that does not mean that one wrong should be compounded by a second wrong. What have those poor people done that they should be suffering? What should someone who's 18 or 19 today, why should he suffer because his father ran away from a massacre 40 years ago?
Rana,
I'm sorry. I think that the basic thing is behind this. May I just finish?
Go ahead.
I think the basic purpose behind this whole business is, in fact, to continue the polarization of India in the vain hope, that it will not lead to, in the hope of a victory that for the forces of Hindutva, Hindu fascism, I have to call it. It's not Hinduism at all. I'm a Hindu. This is not Hinduism. I reject this kind of Hinduism.
Okay, Rana, you just heard Prem talking about polarization, division in India. You recently wrote a piece in The Guardian entitled "Mobs Are Killing Muslims in India. Why is no one stopping them?" Why is religious-based hate crime on the rise in India right now?
Well, because if you see Prime Minister Modi's ascent to power in 2019 has been on the basis of religious polarization. One of the biggest riots in India happened on the eve of the 2014 election. Mr. Modi is also the former Chief Minister of Gujarat, wherein under his leadership, the biggest anti-Muslim riots took place. If you see the language spoken by his leaders, his union, one of his key union ministers honored those who were accused of lynching Muslims on the streets. Another leader has said that if Muslims stop eating beef, they will not be lynched. This seems to be a state mandate. What's happening in Assam today is a part of the government creating the Muslims as the otherness campaign of this government, where they are polarizing Hindus and Muslims. the message that goes out from today's NRC report is that we are going to send these immigrants who also happen to be Muslims away to where they belong because they do not belong to India. That's the bottom line. That's the larger messaging that is happening with today's report. And this is keeping in mind the 2019 election, wherein the government is making migrants, Muslim migrants and Muslim citizens of this country as a part of the other rhetoric that they do not belong to the mainstream. And this process is happening in the form of lynchings, in the form of the government, BJP cadres opposing Hindu-Muslim marriages, communal sentiments being whipped, the Taj Mahal not being, statements being made against the Taj Mahal, and now today this report by the NRC. This is all a part of a project that the Indian government is leading of communal polarization, which is its main trump card leading up to the 2019 election, because there has been no development. So you have to create the otherness. You have to create a communal cauldron before the elections.
All right, let's take a closer look at the 1971 war that led to the creation of Bangladesh. The nearly 9-month conflict was between what was then known as West and East Pakistan. It began after the Pakistani military government based in West Pakistan launched an operation to fight the Bengali opposition in the east. Hundreds of thousands of people in the region fled to neighboring India, which joined the war on the side of Bengali nationalist forces after Pakistan launched airstrikes on its northern region. The war ended after West Pakistan surrendered and Bangladesh declared its independence. All right, Aman, let me ask you, how real is the threat of violence as a result of the new register?
The government of India and the government of Assam has assured that there won't be any kind of violence. And till now, the day has been peaceful, and I hope there is no violence. But I would like to add one thing, that there is a perception that we have to look at the migrant issue sympathetically. But where is the migrant? If you talk about Bengali Muslims, they have started, migrating in 1800 something, when even Bengal was not partitioned. Then India, forget about India being partitioned, even Bengal was not partitioned. The migration started since then, and it was like, migrating from one district to another district. So generally people think that there are a lot of Muslim migrants here, immigrants here. I don't see, I have been fighting for people who have been accused of being illegal immigrant, and I have never come across any Bengali Muslim who have crossed the border after 1947. So this is one thing we will have to keep in mind, that particularly Bengali Muslim, they have started migrating to one district from other district, 1800 something, and from 1910 to 1930 the migration was more, because the because of a well-planned strategy of the Britisher to grow more food. So after 1947 there has been almost no migration. In fact, there has been a reverse migrations, because after 1947 there has been atrocities on the Muslims, and people from this side have migrated to that side. People don't speak about this. People generally, they think, because there has been a perception that there are Muslims who are Bangladeshis here, which is not the truth.
Rana, it looked like you wanted to jump in, make a point there. What did you want to say?
Yeah, I could not agree more with what Aman is saying, because we haven't yet defined who is the migrant here in Assam. I mean, if you these are not migrants who have come post 71. These are not migrants who have come in the 90s, or these are not migrants who have come in recently. These are people who are inhabitants of this country, who have been staying in this country. So as I said in the beginning, there is no definition who is the migrant. This clearly seems to be an attempt to basically tell the citizens of India that these are Muslim citizens who do not belong here, because there is no definition of what is a migrant here in this case. And Aman rightly put that across.
Prem, look, at a time when statelessness is on the rise, at a time when the Rohingya are the largest group of stateless people in the world, isn't this a homegrown crisis that India just doesn't need at the moment?
It most certainly does not need it. And I want to say one more thing. Look, if you take 1971 as a sort of a deadline, for this, then I must insist, and I shall go to court to insist that the 10 million Hindus who were thrown out of Bangladesh are also sent out. They must also be stateless, exactly like the Muslims who they want to make stateless. This is a complete. This is the most ruthless and unprincipled politics that I have ever come across. And I want Aman, you're fighting cases. Please go straight to the Supreme Court with this point right now, before the final register comes out. Don't wait for the damage to be done and then to repair the damage afterwards. There will be no time and there's no money, and the courts take 10 and 12 years. Look at the cases from the Ahmedabad riots. They've been going on even now, and judgment coming out as late as 2014, 12 years later. Who's going to wait for 12 years? Please tell me. This is the reality of India. Our judicial system has broken down. So to say that you can appeal is like saying you have no chance at all. What we have done to you is done.
Rana, you heard this urgent call by Prim just now. When it comes to appeal, I want to ask you further about this appeal process. How easy or difficult is it going to be for those not on the list to actually appeal this decision?
I think as Prem rightly pointed out, that our legal processes, our courts, our laws are not really adept at handling an issue of this of this nature. But before that, I mean, you spoke about the Rohingya crisis, and that's a crisis that India is grappling with. I think in India's response to the Rohingya crisis in the last couple of months, and a couple of lawyers have appealed to the Supreme Court and petitioned to the Supreme Court to take the migrants in India. And the ones who are already, the Rohingya migrants who are already in India, a very few minority of them, are being demonized by the state, by the Indian state, by the BJP-ruled government, with rumors like the Rohingyas are man-eaters and they should be thrown out of India. I think what it really boils down, whether our stand on the Rohingya crisis, our stand on the Assam issue, or the migrant issues, that all of them, each one of them, are Muslims. So this is not about this is not the migrant issue at all. It's a Hindu-Muslim story. As far as your concern about appeals, at this point of time, we have over 4 million people. I do not think the government really has apparatus to handle appeals by so many people at this point of time, because the Indian legal system is already inundated with lakhs of cases from across the country. There are riots cases, there are communal riots, there are hundreds of issues plaguing the Indian judiciary. So I think this is the least of the concerns of the Indian government. I really see a grim future for the people of Assam who have not found their names in the list today.
Aman, we're running out of time, so I'm going to give you the last word here. If those who appeal the decision are still denied citizenship, what happens to them? Is it detention? Is it deportation? What happens next?
See, there is a claims and objection process, and after that, the final NRC will come. And those people who are dropped from the final NRC, they will have to appeal before the Foreigners Tribunal. And only if the Foreigners Tribunal declares these people as foreigner, then the question will come. Now, the government, the Honorable Supreme Court should decide what is the future roadmap. What are they going to do with these people? But then 4 million people, this number is going to be reduced to a small number. I sincerely hope, because in the 4 million people who have been dropped from a family, 2 siblings' name is there, 2 siblings' name are not there. Mother, father name is there, children's names are not there. So I sincerely hope that through the claims and objection process, lots of names, lot of people's names will be included in the final NRC.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. We are out of time. I want to thank all our guests, Rana Ayub, Prim Shankwe Jha, and Aman Wadud. And thank you, too, for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Mohammed Jamjoom, and the entire team here, bye for now.